Everybody, come on in. It's signing day eve, aka the night before a bunch of teenage football players' decisions either fill your heart with glee and the Christmas spirit or enrage you to a point where it becomes embarrassing to admit it to those around you why you're so angry. Let's see where Florida State is going to land, as always, here with some experts in the field. The foremost expert, Zach Blostein. Zach, how you doing, my man? Busy times.
Yeah, it's busy. I'm doing well. Thanks for hosting this.
You bet, man. He's going to be on the phone. He's going to be looking at kids going live. Kids are going to be posting memes, emojis all over Twitter. It just seems like these times have been so turbulent recently, but it feels like even more so. Just how there hasn't been as many decisions as signing days past, but man's the ones that wait until this night to make them. My goodness, there's a lot of drama. And somebody who's not about the drama at all, Coach AB Adam Brown. How you doing, buddy?
Great. Had a little first
You don't
grade
seem
Christmas
that.
concert earlier. I'm locked in, ready to roll, ready. I promised Zach I would be extremely positive. So I'm here for the positivity.
He's good cop.
And if I'm the good cop, we are screwed. And we may be screwed anyway. So who the hell knows?
Oh, look, it's already the veneer of positivity already gone after 5 seconds. Fantastic. Well, I can't wait, guys. It's been a historic season for Florida State. A lot of it good, a 13-0 undefeated record, something that's going to be remembered forever. Historic in the bad because of you know why. So there's been a lot of things that have surrounded this program, and it's always something that surrounds this program. Florida State and Mike Norvell, from COVID to the Travis Hunter to the snub with the CFP, there's always something weird hanging around this program, even when something good happens. To this point, it hasn't affected high school recruiting. Florida State is in the middle. They have a top 5 recruiting class. They have multiple 5 stars committed. This is the most talent-rich class that Florida State and Mike Norvell have brought, that Mike Norvell has had under his tenure by a wide margin. There are a ton of guys, and they've done a lot of pre-work to where most of these decisions for these guys that are committed, Zach, they've done a good job of locking it down. Now, the frustrating thing, at least the chatter that's been on the boards, depending on, there's a lot of stuff that's in the air. And if it all goes well, it could be very good. And if it all goes bad, I'm glad I don't do a lot of moderation on the Knowles 24/7 message board, but it's just they did do a good job of amassing a lot of talent. The talent was distributed a little bit unevenly in places, but most of these commitments are rock solid. So let's just talk before we get to the guys where we're unsure of what they're going to do. The main core of Florida State's commitments, Zach, are anybody that you think might shake out that's not as solid as they look, or the guys like the Cam Davises, the Croman Hawks, even guys that we thought were shaky like LaWayne McCoy, Charles Lester, anybody from that kind of core group before we talk about these individual dudes that Florida State fans should watch out for?
Yeah, I'm not overly worried about anyone besides a guy like KJ Bolden, really.
We'll get to him.
Yeah, I know Charles Lester has tweeted some stuff flirting with Colorado this week, and there's some rumors swirling there. I'm not overly worried about that recruitment. I think he signs with Florida State tomorrow. And then the guy like LaWayne McCoy, obviously, you noted that his commitment's been shaky in the past, but I've checked in as recently as tonight, and I still feel that Florida State's going to sign him. And the rest of the guys, I mean, Luke, Cam Davis, no reason to worry about any of that nucleus of the class, of the number, I think 3 or 4 ranked class right now in the country. Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty good about most of those guys, besides the one we'll talk about in KJ Bolden.
All right. And Adam, what just your general thoughts of that nucleus, the level of talent? It is a step up from every other class of Mike Norvell's tenure, right? Before we start talking about predictions and
I think it's it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of conversation about this class, and I think a lot of opinions are going to be given throughout the next day or so.
Yep.
You've got to be optimistic. Like they've turned a somewhat of a corner with this class. Like it's taken the next step. You're bringing in elite defensive back talent. You're bringing in really good playmakers on the edges and wide receiver. And it's just, are you going to be able to go finish it? We know the positions are lacking. We know they're lacking in the front 7 on defense, linebacker. And while I like some of the linebackers are bringing in, they're maybe not the higher caliber guys that we want to start seeing them land and get involved in those recruitments. Then obviously the defensive line position is one that just overall bodies and numbers and skill levels, it has to improve there.
And from a strategy standpoint, we're going to talk about it with the guy who reclassified from 25 to 24 and what his decision is going to be tomorrow or not going to be tomorrow. It feels like you're scrambling a little bit at that position. I think that's fair.
It does. And
so go ahead.
No, I mean, we're going to talk about all that. We're going to obviously make some picks tonight. Then tomorrow night we'll be back again with some recap. So
that's just to give you some perspective. Tomorrow night, once everybody's in the boat, we're going to talk about these guys individually and the dudes that have been committed, like Cam Davis. He's been committed ever since I was like a sophomore in college 85 years ago. Guys like that deserve the spotlight too because they're talented and they're committed to the program. And I think we're going to give that all on tomorrow night's show. Teaser, we're going to be doing a tomorrow night show as well. But right now we're just going to talk about the guys that are obviously giving you all of the frustration, all of the anxiety. We're going to talk about those guys. And I think first and foremost is a kid, KJ Bolden, Florida State's 5-star commit. He's been committed for months. Florida State had a massive victory over most notably 2-time, not anymore, national champion and Florida State's opponent in the Orange Bowl. It was a huge coup when they got him. They've kept him the entire way. They had a really great strategy, Zach, to get the final official visit. No like weirdo last minute Keldrick Fox on Sunday afternoons. But ever since then, it seems like a kid that this was always one that other opposing teams had circled, right? Because of the talent level. So you knew he had a target on the back, but for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, this kid felt solid. He was saying all the right things. There was not an overabundance of worrying right up until this very end. And it's just, I think Florida State fans are familiar with this in the Mike Norvell era because they do a really good job of getting committed guys in. And then on these sign-in days when it's closing time, it does kind of feel like we're holding on. We're holding on for dear life on the roller coaster ride. So what has happened with KJ Bolden? Their report, Auburn was seen as the main threat. And then national recruiting, our guy, the guru, Steve Wiltfong, he says now Georgia is his main threat. Zach, what's going on here? And give us your prediction of who do you think he signs with tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, you can compare it a lot to what happened the week before he committed to Florida State at the beginning of August, where Auburn got the last visit before his commitment. There was a ton of Auburn buzz. Like guys were putting in predictions from over on that side of things, and people thought he was going to Auburn. And then it was Georgia again, the school that's been recruiting him the longest. Obviously, KJ grew up a fan of FSU, rooting for FSU, but Georgia was in his recruitment from the start, and Kirby Smart has a really good relationship with him, and they had a ton of buzz. Like 5 minutes before he announced his commitment to FSU, like people were posting that there was confidence in Athens, Georgia, about their chances of landing KJ Bolden. So like that commitment went up to the wire, and both those schools had confidence. And you can compare a lot of that to what's happened this week. I think there's a lot of renegotiation going on with NIL. We know that's a big factor in most of these high-profile recruitments, if not all of them. And that's certainly the case with KJ Bolden. It's, him and his camp are working through all of that this week, hearing what all these sides have to say, the coaching staffs and, the NIL packages available at each program. And I think that's kind of what's going to factor into the decision. And I mean, I'm rolling with Florida State simply because I feel like this is a lot similar to, there's a lot of similarities to what happened in August. The reporting of confidence in both on the plains in Auburn and in Athens with UGA over the past few days, it's been those two schools with the most buzz, even more than Florida State, according to national sources. When I check in with people in Tallahassee, they haven't been given any significant reason to worry. They haven't been told that they're out of it or that they're not getting him or they're not going to sign him. So that's been a positive to me. Like they haven't wavered a ton in their confidence, according to the people I speak with. And I feel pretty good about, where they're placed in the order of this recruitment. So, I think there's going to be more twists and turns with KJ Bolden's recruitment leading up to his signing, which is scheduled. It's supposed to be happen around 1 p.m. EST tomorrow at Buford High School.
Fun lunch break. I got a question. So, Zach, before his initial recruitment, where did you think he was going to go?
I guess you're talking about like before his commitment in August.
Yeah, like right before that initial commitment, Brendan was the one that was standing on the soapbox saying Florida State over again. His prediction in his article is Auburn now. So I think that that's pretty interesting. What was yours? What did you think that initial commitment was going to be when it happened?
Yeah, I felt like it was Florida State.
Okay.
I will. Yeah.
But do you feel that I wanted to ask that? Do you feel more confident now when he is a commit that he's going to eventually sign with Florida State than you did before that initial prediction? You predicted Florida State both times. Did you feel more confident in your August prediction, or do you feel more confident now in your December prediction?
It's weird. I would say feel like, as weird as it sounds, like he's a commitment right now, but I feel more confident in August. I'm not going to lie. Like,
which I think a lot of people do. That's why I wanted you to say that. You got him committed. He's been committed to months, and yet people like you
he took an official last weekend to Florida State this past weekend, the final official visit of his recruitment. So like, yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear, like I mentioned, like with any recruitment, any big time recruitment involving schools that are, power players in college football, there's going to be NIL involved. And that's definitely the case with this one. So like, as much as you want to write it, FSU getting the last visit and it should be a done deal, like this is kind of what happens towards the end. And Auburn is a huge power player in the NIL market, and we know Georgia has always been that as well. So yeah, man, but it is weird. Like I will say, like the fact that I don't feel the same level of confidence. I was like, Brendan and I had both been hearing leading up to that August commitment that Florida State was getting him. And everyone we spoke to, that we trust on the Florida State side of things, never, ever wavered, even, in all the reporting that was going on. And, I think Brendan, maybe some of his sources have wavered, but the people I speak to haven't. So that's why I rolled with Florida State.
Okay.
And we speak to different people. So, I respect that he put in a different prediction. I like that we have some differences on our prediction card right now on those247.com that I posted. Chris, Brendan, and I, all predicted, I think it was 5 remaining targets. So not a ton, but we shared our latest predictions as of Tuesday night heading into signing day.
And it's all fluid. It could change. Zach
100%.
talks to different people. Brendan talks to different people. Nobody will talk to me because why would you? Adam, you talk to different people too. How do you feel about this specific? Shut your face. How do you feel about this specific recruitment, man? Are you feeling pretty easy? And what do you ultimately think is going to happen tomorrow?
No, I think this one's over in a bad way. Unfortunately, not over, but there's still opportunities to do the things to potentially land him. I think this one's trending away from Florida State. Unfortunately, I feel like it's been trending away since the snub. I don't think it's any
because of it, or
I don't think it's by chance that he shows up at Auburn the Monday after the snub. That's just my opinion. I don't know that for fact. I'll say that, Zach, maybe you can report on that a little bit more. But I don't think it's just by happenstance he shows up there Monday after your football team that went 13-0 gets left out of the college football playoff and basically is told that they're in a conference that doesn't mean a damn thing. And they're not.
But it's also like we're not talking about like he went and visited Georgia. He visited Auburn. So like to me, I wouldn't like the messaging I got. The messaging I got surrounding that recruitment following the snub was that he viewed it as just extra motivation to come to Florida State and win multiple national championships.
And that's what he said immediately afterwards. So
yeah, like that was what I heard right after. So yeah, I mean,
but to Adam's point, and it's something that
I definitely do think it impacted.
Just looking strictly at trends.
To me, it's not even so much that singular event, which of course, just like the Hunter thing, it's a historic crap sandwich that Florida State fans have to eat, which is fantastic. But it's this theme of these elite recruiting guys like the Mario Cristobal's, the Hugh Freezes, even the Kirby Smarts now. They see an opportunity here at the close for these guys that Florida State has had committed, like the Keldrick Falks and and the others, and even guys that weren't committed, but that they had a good chance with, like the Wesley Basaints and things like that. The guys that you need to like finish off these recruitments for. I don't know. So do you think that that's more of like the snub is maybe more of like an opportunity that these like kind of sharky recruiter guys see?
Man,
I mean,
I think it's an opportunity to crack the door more than anything.
right.
And that's all.
I don't think it's a. I'll push back on it being like a deciding factor for a visit. I think Auburn is probably going to get him on campus. Like they're invested in that recruitment and they haven't let up, and that's been the reporting on that. But like I'm sure it helped open the door.
Yeah, and that's all I mean. But that's all these elite guys. That's all Hugh Freeze needs. He just needs an opening.
Yeah,
and he's going to weasel his way in there. I mean, it's just what we've seen time and time again. What he's able to do when he sees the slightest crack.
Any other things to you, Adam, that have you? Because as of right, you have him going away from Florida State, and do you have Auburn or Georgia?
No, I think he's going to end up at Georgia.
You think he's going to end up at Georgia? Are there any other
noise around it?
Now the Auburn thing is interesting because he at least visited there. I don't know the last time he's been on Georgia's campus. As a committed guy who had his entire family in Tallahassee and didn't see anybody else, so all of his communications with the Georgia staff would be like over the phone. That is interest. That goes against the grain of follow the visits, man. Don't you think?
Yeah. And like, I don't know. Follow the visits is always like a pretty good guideline. Shout out Newberg. But like, I feel like it's gotten a little less important with the introduction of NIL into recruitments and like,
interesting.
That's just my opinion. But I mean, for sure, like it does matter. So I think he maybe visited for like a Georgia home game this year. Like one time, if I remember correctly, it was like earlier on in the season.
Yeah, I think so.
But besides that, I don't know of any other visit that happened to Athens for KJ Bolden. And I will agree, like AB, like I do think if it's not FSU, it's probably Georgia based on what I'm hearing tonight. I don't think Auburn has nearly as much confidence as they did maybe a day ago, which is just crazy to think. Like I know people like give Steve Wiltfong like flack for like changing his view on this recruitment so much. Well, like you guys don't like these kids change their minds so much. Like
it's not like the kid made up his decision who he's going to sign with in September and everybody's trying to guess the answer. That answer has changed dozens and dozens of times.
And people get mad that we put in last minute crystal balls sometimes. And like, yes, I like the idea of like trying to predict where a kid's going to go from far out. Like that's the idea of it. But sometimes, man, like you don't know if the school's going to come in with a big NIL deal at the end and just land the kid because he factors out the most. I'm not saying that this is happening with KJ Bolden. I'm just saying in general when talking about this. So like I will say that like I do think there's been a lot of fluctuation with this recruitment specifically, and that like I think Auburn was at one point feeling like they had him yesterday, and then Georgia now appears to be the school with the most confidence. And like I said, the people I speak to at Florida State haven't really, wavered in their confidence. So,
we'll see. I'll say I spoke to someone that with Florida State who said flatly, like, we're getting KJ. I don't always trust them. I just don't. They've proven me wrong too many times, unfortunately.
Damn, you're calling out a source?
Yeah, I'm no trouble doing it. I believe in the source who told me he's not gonna. They're not optimistic, so I'm gonna ride with that one.
Now, question, because I'm gonna go with Florida State, I think, as well, but it is a very like 51-52%. I just give the strength of him being committed and you being the last visit and having everybody there. I think that will win out slightly in the end. But one thing I want to talk about just as like a general thing, because it's been mentioned a bunch of times tonight, Zach, and I want your opinion on it. And I want your opinion on it too, Adam, but just the pulse of it, especially before we talk about this next uncommitted kid, the number one prospect in the entire country in Jeremiah Smith. You guys mentioned NIL power players, NIL this, NIL that, NIL this. Is Florida State being bullied in the NIL space right now? I was under the impression that we are a power player, and I think that we are. So when we talk about NIL discrepancies, I don't want people to think that we're getting small balled here. What is the actual reality? we can't talk numbers or anything, but are the offers comparable? Are there some cases where Florida State is maybe even the best offer and still not looking like the choice for some of these kids? Where's Florida State standing kind of the hierarchy of the NIL space?
Yeah, I mean, they're close to the top. I'm not going to sit
Why
here.
Are you laughing at them?
Can I just? I'm sorry, Zach. I don't mean to cut you off. Literally, just got a text from somebody. Having conversations with some folks right now, feel more confident now on Bolden than I did an hour ago.
Oh God, it's right.
That's how this shit goes, man. Like, there are a lot of frustrated people in the chat right now, and I get it. There's 845 people in here with us right now.
Hey, love you guys.
That is literally how it goes.
Yes.
And in 45 minutes, I guarantee you, Zach more than me. I'm not a freaking recruiting guy. I do talk to some people, but Zach is a recruiting guy. He is the expert at this stuff. This stuff changes by the minute.
Yeah, I agree. Adam, are you going to flip your prediction based off that last minute text?
No.
Okay, he's still Georgia, FSU. So when he picks FSU, you'd be mad at him. Anyway, hierarchy of Florida State in the NIL space. Elaborate, Zach.
I think FSU is doing just fine in that department. I don't think I think there's an extra tier of maybe schools that they're not competing with, but it also depends. Like, there's a lot of
I call that the desperation tier. Is that tier?
Yeah. Like Auburn, for instance. Like, I think
when
Auburn
people talk about the tiers, they normally think of Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. That's not necessarily the NIL space tier, right?
I think the schools you can put in that tier: Auburn, Miami, Ole Miss. I think Tennessee to some degree. Like, those are the schools that are. If you look at these high-profile transfer portal recruitments, some of these high-profile high school recruitments, those are the schools that are consistently putting up the most money for these prospects. So, yeah, man, I like FSU's fine in that department. Like, they're competitive. Like, in almost every recruitment, they're not like lacking to a degree where it's going to lose them out on recruitments because they're way behind in numbers. They're fine. But like they're not in the desperation category where I would put like a school like Auburn and Miami and those types that have a ton of money to work with, and they're trying to flip their roster from top to bottom. Florida State's probably at a better spot roster wise right now, but like those schools are investing a ton in trying to land high profile kids, and Florida State is too, but not to that degree, I would say.
Okay. Yeah. Jeremiah Smith, number one prospect in the country, been committed to Ohio State for over a year, right? About a year, almost a year.
Yeah, I think it's like a year, like within the last few days.
They have done, in my opinion, such a good job of continuing to chip away at this recruitment and get him on campus. And he keeps showing up. He keeps showing up. It was a tactical, strategic recruitment. And this is a big boy. This is like the Julio Jones of the Mike Norvell era. This is a generational wide receiver. This is like an every 5 or 10 year type kid, man. He's really good. So Zach, before you talk about the ins and outs of this recruitment and where you think he's going to go, Adam, can you talk about Jeremiah Smith as just a player? Like, you're a coach, dude. What happened if you had to? What is, like, people think number one player in the nation? What would it mean to Florida State if they could land Jeremiah Smith?
He's a freak. I mean, he is your instant replacement for the two big-time players that you're losing at the wide receiver position from this season, and Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman, and more so Keon Coleman. He's, we know what Keon is. He's a first-round draft pick, most likely. We'll see if the injuries kind of knocked his stock a little bit, but he's the best wide receiver prospect I've seen in maybe 15 years or so.
Do you remember who that guy was before 15?
Julio Jones. I mean, however long ago it was Julio came out, like Julio, AJ Green, those guys. Yeah. I mean, he's a big physical monster that can run like a cheetah, and he catches everything. I mean, he just is an absolute beast. I mean, there's not a lot. I hope like hell we get to break his tape down.
We're going to be going overtime for that one, dude.
Yeah.
You got me hyped up. Zach.
He's a freak show.
What do you think about this recruitment? How are you feeling? I mean, this is a South Florida kid. You're in South Florida. You've got a beautiful kitchen that I think your podcast knows from. Totally dope cabinets, by the way. Nice microwave. I think I have the same model. Nice. You're in that space. everybody's coming after Jeremiah Smith, and I think he's had for being a committed dude. When you listen to his interviews, he sounds like a rock solid Ohio State commit, even up until like this day. But his actions, I think, I don't want to say suggest otherwise, but he's been open. He's played this recruiting thing about as well as anybody that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about this recruitment? Give the kind of the backstory, the ups and downs, and ultimately where you think he's going to sign tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I think Florida State has done everything right in this recruitment, dating back to kind of the end of last season and into 2023. Like, they hosted him a few times for unofficial visits during the spring and the summer. They got him on campus for multiple games. They got him, or he was in Orlando to watch the LSU FSU game to start the season. He returns to Tallahassee for the Miami game. He also watched the UF FSU game in the Swamp. And then he takes his OV to FSU 2 weekends ago, which is his final OV of the recruiting process. And now he gets to make his final decision. He's been committed to Ohio State, like you said, for a year. I put in my prediction like on our article on noles247.com for Florida State. I will say, like, this is a battle. Like, I'm not like extremely confident in that prediction. I felt really good about where Florida State has stood in Jeremiah Smith's recruitment over the last few weeks, months even. But I think this is as close as it's been, maybe since like October. And, we'll see what happens tomorrow. But, I could see it going either way right now.
And by as close as it's been, do you mean that Florida State, in your mind, has maybe had even the lead in this recruitment?
To my understanding,
from a feeling standpoint, the kid has been committed to Ohio State, but I mean,
obviously
I feel
not anything publicly, but I mean, I think Florida State behind the scenes felt like really good about where they stood with Jeremiah. This really all started kind of after the Miami game. He visited for that game, was there all weekend. And after that, I heard like extremely positive buzz surrounding where Florida State was in that recruitment.
Absolutely.
In the weeks following that, still felt good. I think it's closened over the last day. I mean, you know how these recruitments go. I mean, Ohio State badly wants to keep him, and school like Miami and even Florida want to flip him. So, yeah.
Miami's in the desperation tier that we talked before. They have a really, really good recruiting staff, and Ohio State's a factory who, I don't know, their number one wide receiver was just in New York at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. So that's something that's pretty impressive. Do you think Florida, the things that are important to Jeremiah Smith, what are they if you had to like rank them? Like, I know a lot of Florida State fans really wanted to get a transfer quarterback commit today, specifically just because you need one. And number two, how it would affect this kid's choice on signing day. What do you think are the most important things to Jeremiah Smith that would get him to change his pledge tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I think you talk about it like with a guy like Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, like the development of those big body wide receivers that, he told me during the season that Keon Coleman was his favorite college football player, or favorite wide receiver to watch.
Which is crazy because Marvin Harrison Jr. was on Ohio State.
Was at Ohio State, the school he's been committed to forever. And I mean, I think the development of those two guys, Keon obviously into a probable first round pick, and then Johnny into a, whatever round pick, like he'll be a draft pick. So I think that helps a ton. Like, Jeremiah absolutely wants to get to the league as soon as possible, and he wants to be a first round pick. So Florida State has almost now proved that they can do that within Mike Norvell's offense. And I think, it comes back to that guy, Mike Norvell. He loves Mike Norvell. He's said, been on record multiple times saying that's a huge reason why he's high on Florida State and continues to consider FSU. He thinks that he's, one of the best, or if not the best head coach in college football, cares about his players, loves that about him. And I think that's, a huge factor into why, like I said, Smith has been, so highly interested in Florida State. And then obviously, like I said before with KJ Bolden, NIL is also a factor.
It's going to be a factor for everybody. Do you feel more, before I get to your prediction, Adam, you feel more confident in your KJ Bolden FSU pick or your Jeremiah Smith FSU pick? Zach? There's a question directed towards you. I'm going to pretend you were contemplating it.
Yeah, I'll say Jeremiah Smith. Yeah, I'll say Jeremiah Smith.
Fun. Okay, good. Like I said, nobody's going to hold you to it. Just want to see. There's the hierarchy of confidence. Adam, what do you think? You're a big old party pooper. KJ Bolden's he's moving to Athens as we speak. What's Jeremiah Smith going to do? Is he looking at apartments in Columbus and getting a parka?
I think Florida State had a window of opportunity to land Jeremiah Smith, and I think that unfortunately that window passed.
How long ago?
I think in the end, the development in his relationship with Brian Hartline is going to win out.
Okay.
I think that his family they view that as a surefire opportunity to get themselves to the league. I mean, and you can't really argue with that rationale. I mean, that program's just churns out wide receivers. So I think in the end that's going to win out over his relationship with getting killed. I'm getting killed in the chat over his relationship with Mike.
Good thing I don't look at it.
I thought you were going to be positive.
I'm trying to be. I mean, I think that they.
You think
they had an opportunity to land him.
I
think unfortunately that slipped through their grasp.
So you think if they didn't flip him during the season, it's too late, essentially?
Yeah. I think always. I don't think that this is a great staff when it comes to going out and winning these kinds of fights. I just don't think that this is their strength. They have a lot of strengths. I'm really ultimately pretty positive about this staff. I just don't think that this is what they're necessarily good at. And I think in the end, that's why we see so many of these things on national or on early signing day go against them.
We'll see. This could be a nice inflection point of changing that and getting the number one wide receiver in the country.
Yes. Ultimately, I refuse to be hurt again.
There you go, man. Keep the bar low. Keep the bar low, and you'll be fine. I think I'm going to lean with Zach on this one. I wanted Florida State to get Jeremiah Smith. It doesn't matter, dude. Like I said, I'm not really too sourced out. I'm just a host guy. I think it would be, man, they've done such a good job. When was the last time he even went to Columbus?
It's been like 8 months.
You're muted, Zach, because you're probably going to say, I don't know.
October or something like that, September.
They did so good tactically with all of these visits. And of course, every official visit is good, but Florida State seems to do a particularly good job on official visits and things like that. And when they get more time with the staff, it just would be interesting. Oh man, dude, AB Knowles 407, AB farts in his car, doesn't roll the windows down, just sucking. Coach Adam Brown sucking down his own farts. Well, you know what, Adam? I'm going to lob you a softball to saying a guy is going to go to Florida State. We hope. If this doesn't happen, then it's going to be a real bad day tomorrow. 3-star defensive tackle, Denos White. Adam, where do you think Denos White is going to go?
AB, don't even.
Where do you think Denos White is going to go? Security, you said North Carolina or something. And what does he bring? Like, what kind of prospect is he?
He's going to he's going to Miami, right? No, I ultimately expect Debo White to be a Seminole tomorrow, and I think it's a great get. He's a nose tackle body that moves really well laterally. We're gonna take some look at his tape tomorrow if he does ultimately pick Florida State, and I think that he fits what you want to become long term as a defense. I mean, they want guys that can. They want to be. We've talked so much about playing light box defense. They want to be a light box defense. They want to be able to play with 6 guys and stop the run. And I think ultimately that's what they're going to do. They want to bring in big physical dudes like Denos White who can plug up the middle of the defense and play the run really well. And that's what he is. And I personally think he's a little underrated. I know there was a lot of conversation about who was the top defensive tackle target with
Artavius Jones.
Artavius Jones and Nasir Johnson. I personally liked Denos White the most of all those guys. It seems like maybe Florida State did too.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Maybe they couldn't get in with Nasir.
I think you're actually right. I talked to someone yesterday who said that exact same thing. They like Denos definitely more than Artavius, and it was close between Nasir and him, but they liked his tape because I mean, they love the size. Obviously, he measured in 6'4", 333 pounds on his visit. So
And I heard he had really like good arm length too. Like,
yes,
not,
it was
not
70,
a short, stubby
70
guy.
something. I forget the exact measurement, but I was actually told that yesterday as well. So, yeah, they love him. I agree with you, AB. I think they're gonna land him tomorrow. I was told not to worry about that one. I mean, at this point,
Are you? You did the hands up in the air for the people that can't.
I'm not ruling anything out, but I'm not worried about it. Like,
Okay.
that's not one I'm like going to be, closely monitoring tomorrow. I do think FSU lands him. I think they did enough on his OV. I felt really, really good about that recruitment after the OV. I know Miami was trying to make a late run at him, but I think FSU will sign him tomorrow.
All right. It's so weird to talk about a committed guy so far deep into a prediction show, but where he's going to go. But Armando Blunt, 1,
Miami.
2, 3. Miami.
I refuse to answer.
We did our prediction thing, and I told Brendan and Chris that he didn't even have to like send in their predictions, and I'll just include it for them.
That recruitment pisses me off more than I think like a lot of ones that have occurred lately.
Why? How come?
They were getting played from the jump, like not from the start. Like, look, he committed to Florida State, but it took Mario Cristobal not being intelligent enough to take a knee in a game to get the kid to come back to your school, like, or to reconsider you after he committed to Miami.
Hall of Fame idiot move. It took a Hall of Fame first ballot idiot move. Hall of Fame.
After the whole time it was Florida State leads, Florida State leads, Florida State leads, and he shows up there one weekend and he's committed to after they beat Texas A&M. And then it takes a bonehead, dumbest Hall of Fame level screw up by Mario Cristobal to get that thing back in your favor. And you get him. And then, I mean, come on, man. Come on.
Zach, what do you think?
Then he's there. Then he's not going to commit that weekend. Then he is going to commit that weekend. Then the following week, he's going to show up on their campus. And then
it was a mess. I share Adam's frustration. It's very rare that you take a kid that is so talented, like a high 4-star prospect, and by the end of it, so many fans are just like, I don't even care at this point. That's the type of consternation from a recruitment that doesn't normally happen because the talent level is so good. Zach, what do you think about? Zach, what did you think, man? What did you think about this recruitment? Are you surprised at how quickly we said a dude committed to Florida State who flipped from Miami is going to flip back, and it's just basically a given? There's literally zero drama. We just know what's happening. What do you think about the recruitment?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's just crazy dynamics to that recruitment that maybe we can get into more after.
I would love to.
After signing day. Want to let the dust settle there, but I'm totally open to that, especially, according to some recent events with that recruitment. But anyway, yeah, I think I'm going to take more of like a macro approach to evaluating that. Like, I think it just goes back to the point that I've been bringing up for months and maybe even years at this point.
Yeah.
Their high school edge and interior D-line recruiting is not good enough. It just isn't. And like, the take of Armando Blunt, and like, if you land him, that's a great get. Like, Armando Blunt's not helping you in 24. And
right.
You're not landing there aren't a bunch of D linemen in the country that are helping you in year one. But like, that's a guy that's going to have to go through a heavy developmental process because he's reclassing up a year and a half. He's not only reclassing from 25 to 24, but he's also enrolling early. So he's skipping a year and a half of his high school career to get to college early. So that's a lot of development. So like, yes, his measurables, his testing, off the charts. Like, he's probably going to be a really good player.
Yep.
There's, other factors in that recruitment that made that a complete headache. And like, I understand why the fan base, and I know Brendan brought this up on our podcast, that like, that's going to be like an annoying, like, thing to deal with, most likely if he's on your roster, because if things go bad or, something comes up, you're going to have what's going on right now happen to you. So like, yeah, I mean, I think the overall point is like, Florida State needs to build out its boards better earlier on in the process. They need to have a number of backup options to turn to. And like, your backup option for Armando Blunt, we hinted at this a little bit before, was Amari Williams, who you also got to reclass from 25 to 24. And he officially visits campus over the weekend, which you look like a complete genius if you get him to officially visit and then sign 3 days later on Wednesday. But that's not going to happen. He
Put a
told me
pin.
today, yeah.
Go, say what you're about to say. Then I want to put a pin in that because that's its own separate thing.
He told me today that he's signing in February. So, like, what are we doing?
So put a pin in that.
Yeah.
The disconnect with the building of the boards, the scrambling, using like an ace in the hole like that Amari Williams kid for it not to work out. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. What is the disconnect? Is it like effort, like sheer volume of calls and contacts? Is the quality of the contact in the relationship not good? Is there an information gap to where maybe we think we're in better spots than we actually are? Is it a combination of everything? Is it something you even want to touch on? But where do you think the disconnect is? Because there is a discrepancy when you look at what's happening at receiver, how Florida State like recruits running backs and quarterback, defensive back. They might even, if God, I don't even want to put it out there, I'm knocking on wood. My table's faux wood. But like if you lose KJ Bolden, you still got one of the best DB classes in the country. So there's other things on the staff that are functioning at a higher level.
Yeah.
What do you think the disconnect is? Florida State has got even recently. Jared Verse is going to be a first-round pick. Jermaine Johnson is just bending people over his knee and breaking their backs, Bane style. Brian Burns, like there's a history of recent success. Zach, where do you think the disconnect is?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all the things you listed. There have been communication issues with specific prospects throughout this cycle and in past cycles. I think there's an information issue at some points where maybe FSU feels like it has a better shot to land someone than they actually do. I think we've seen that. There's a ton of evidence of that over the past few cycles. I mean, I can go back. Nigel Lee Kelly, Marvin Jones Jr. Like those are guys that FSU limited its options on the board for because it felt good enough that they were going to land one of those guys, and then they land none of them, and they're left with guys that are probably not going to contribute. The guys they've signed in past years out of the high school ranks. Obviously, they've done a great job in the portal. I truly don't understand the disconnect because you could argue it's the easiest position at Florida State to sell right now to recruits. You can sell that are going to have 2 first-round draft picks within 3 years at the position, at the edge position specifically. And, Braden Fisk is going to be probably a high draft or a decently high draft pick. Like you're going to have D-tackle progress, and Odell's one of the most tenured and most prolific, D-tackle developers in the country, defensive line developers in the nation.
Year over year, yeah.
Why is it so hard for Florida State to sell out to high school prospects? Like, you're looking at 7-5 Miami, and I know we talked about like desperation mode in the NIL market, but like they have like 7 or 8 defensive line commits, and they're a good number of them are blue chip guys.
They're out recruiting you. They're out recruiting you. They may be overpaying. They may be paying more than you on a spot by spot basis. Like they're not overpaying for 8 defensive line commits. Let's be serious. You're just getting out recruited, right?
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah, I'm going to be critical of that. I think I've, been very like, I don't want to say timid, but like just wary of like,
it's a trend. It's a year over year.
When you see the trend, you see the results that are happening every single cycle, especially when we get closer to signing day and you see where these recruitments trend towards the end. That's where like, I feel comfortable enough now to view all of the progress, all of the trends that we've seen play out over the last few cycles. Like I feel confident saying that it's a clear issue that needs to be addressed.
Adam,
well, I think that's the bigger issue is the fact that there's enough data at this point that I'm done talking about JP and Odell. This falls squarely on Mike's feet, and probably Derek Ray to some extent also. Zach, maybe you could speak better to that structure, but you can't continue to trust that these guys are doing their jobs on a day in, day out basis when it comes to recruiting. And if you are, that says more about the mistakes that you're making than the mistakes that they're making, because they've proven to you who they are. They've proven to you that they don't love recruiting, that they don't want to invest the time that it takes day in and day out to be a really good recruiter. We don't need them to be elite. The program itself will make them elite. They just need to be competent at it. And they're proving that they're not that. with all that they have to sell. And look, Odell's on his way out. He's an older coach. He's been around a really long time. He's, I'm sure, constantly fighting the negative recruiting of when's Odell going to retire? He's not going to be there throughout your career. What yada yada yada.
Yeah.
But it's crystal clear that recruiting effort is not there at those positions, and the fact that it's happening now a third year in a row, that becomes a bigger question mark that Mike needs to start to answer for. It falls at his feet. This is his staff. There was a lot put on their plate. They wanted to keep things together to run it back for this last year's squad for 2023.
And they got it ripped away from them. It was almost they really did, man. They threaded the needle and they went 13-0, and
you can't take that away from them.
Jordan was healthy. No, so you got to give them the props on the field. And those coaches that we're talking about, they developed the hell out of Fabian Lovett and Braden Fisk and Patrick Payton and Jared Verse and Daniel Lyons, guys that are coming in, Josh Farmer. They did their job on that side. It's just you're going to have to make the choice of being a position coach is a combination of the development and the recruiting.
Yeah, you're not getting paid just to develop.
But look where we're at right now. We're going to talk about the portal at some point. Maybe not tonight, but we're going to talk about the portal at some point. You've had 3 defensive end official visitors on campus. You landed the layup, and it wasn't even easy. The Okanlala kid just committed to Colorado. Kennard is he's South Carolina. You couldn't get RJ Oben on campus. We're entering territory where you might be screwed.
The portal's been the
there's
portal's
a long
been
way to go. There is a long way.
Now, listen, the portal has been a safety net, and they've shown competence in it. Just as we've said that there's been a trend of information where this position group hasn't done good in high school. There's been a trend of information year over year that they've gotten a really good transfer portal class every single year. I know it doesn't feel like it right now.
Three.
You got to analyze it after it's all done.
That's fair. I won't begrudge.
You gotta analyze it when it's all done. And
yeah,
but I think
we need to analyze that after. Look, the Orange Bowl is right in front of us here in a couple weeks. You're not making any types of moves until after that, as far as staff changing. We have seen Mike help coaches find other roles elsewhere that he felt like did not fit what he needed. Even Marcus Woodson last year. I mean, in a season that they wanted to run it back and have that continuity, you saw a change at defensive back and bring in a Pat Surtain.
Chris Marv, it's happened year after year. Yeah. So we'll get to that. These are big macro stuff that we're going to get to. I want to get back to the individual players, but I think that's a good point because it is something that's happened year over year.
Yeah, we can talk more about that tomorrow as well.
I think so. Yeah. Amari Williams, we talked about it. This is a kid that it looked like after all the Armando Blunt stuff happened, it looked like just a master chess maneuver that they had this kid almost in their back pocket. And assuming that they did that, it's like, hey, I don't know if he was going to reclass anyway, or if I don't know if there was a convincing to have him reclass, but it's like reclass immediately, official visit to Florida State. Holy crap, this kid might actually sign early. It looked great, but like as you said, Zach, you talked to him February, and you're of the opinion. I mean, we can give our prediction on him in February, but you can give your prediction now, and if you think he's going to go to Florida State.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Why is that?
So I'll give you this, it was a weird recruitment to me, right? Because when you took a look at his 2025 recruitment, like when he was in that class, obviously, thought he was, a year out from signing until this past weekend when he officially visited Florida State and he announced the news of reclassing. I had been hearing behind the scenes for a month prior to that there was a chance that he could reclass. I didn't know that all the, FSU buzz would circle around him.
Came out of nowhere, yeah.
Yeah. Wilt Fong actually reported that for us. So that came to me by surprise, but I'd heard the reclass stuff, but Florida State was not considered the team to beat for him in his 25 recruitment. They were not. I thought it was Georgia. I was close to putting in a crystal ball pick for Georgia. I know Miami is a huge factor in his recruitment now. They're a school that's telling him hey, wait till February. I thought unless you know for sure that kid is going to sign in December, or you have a extremely strong indication that he's telling you this is what's going to happen, and you get him on campus that weekend, that's a great play. But if not, like, he might take 3 or 4 more official visits, and he can't unless he unofficially visits Florida State. He's not returning again in January when he takes the rest of his officials and signs in February. Like, so that's why I'm not confident in FSU's chances of landing Amari Williams. I think
because you weren't confident before.
Well, I would be extremely confident if he was signing tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. My thing is, so if this is a kid, so devil's advocate your point a little bit.
Yeah.
If this is a kid that we thought before that official visit happened, Florida State wasn't in the leaderboard for anyway, hell, dude, take delayed OVs. We don't know if they're going to work. Maybe take an early one and like knock it out of the park and maybe have the kid sign and then you sign him and then you jump 2 or 3 other teams. Like as like a Hail Mary pitch for a kid that you didn't think you were going to land.
But like, I will say that
I don't know if I agree with it, but I'm saying maybe that's the
I know
mindset.
I can see where you're coming from, and that makes sense. But I will note this: like, they canceled their official visit with Lugard from
that. There you
BND,
go. That's a good one.
Who just moved into the top 180 of our rankings, by the way, and is likely going to commit to Michigan tomorrow. So yeah, I mean, I didn't understand that move. He's a much better prospect than Amari Williams at edge. He's even ranked higher than him now after Amari got moved to the 2024 rankings. Like I generally, like, Dane has talked about a ton. Like, he went through his film. I've watched his film. Super impressed by that kid. Like, I think he's a late riser that obviously Florida State was in on, Texas A&M, Michigan, which is the school that looks like they're going to land him. Like, I thought that was a kid they should have hosted. And that would have been an awesome duo to have with a guy like D.D. Holmes, who's more filled out. Both guys are like 6'6". That's the type of kids you want to recruit at that position, because we've seen in the past few cycles, like, they've landed these guys that are like 6'2", 6'3", maybe, and are likely not going to contribute quality snaps at Florida State. So like, that's why you see that they are so portal dependent now. Like, we'll talk about that more in the future, but like, portal DN, we talked about it going into the cycle, is going to be a big need, with Patrick Payton's,
who knows,
status in flux. We'll see what happens there, but that impacts numbers. Like, that's a kid you develop out of the high school ranks. You got so yeah, and I think it just goes back to the overall point, but we don't need to harp on that anymore.
No, I agree. And like we said, we talked about it. And there's one more edge we got to talk about. LJ McCray. This is a kid Florida State was on early. I thought they did a good job. Communication was strangely absent over the summer. I didn't really understand. He got close to Florida. He tried to make a run right before his commitment. Florida won out. Florida has looked terrible. They look terrible all season. Their recruiting class is in absolute shambles. They're leaking commitments. And yet LJ McCray still stands firm. I think there's actually been, this is one of the few end of cycle recruitments where I feel like Florida State's positive buzz has been on the upswing. Not enough to where I'm going to predict Florida State to land him, but this is one of the few that seems to have been trending up in Florida State's favor. Zach, what do you think about the LJ McCray recruitment? Does Florida State have a legit chance to make all the defensive end stuff that we just said invalid? And you guys are stupid because they just landed like a top kid at that position.
Yeah, I mean, they have a chance. I wouldn't say it's a strong chance. I haven't heard, like, I checked in tonight, people I spoke to were not confident. Didn't sound like there were a ton of productive conversations between the two sides today. I predicted him to stay with Florida. I think that it's either going to be Florida or Auburn. I mean, obviously FSU's hosted him multiple times since his commitment to UF, and that gives them a chance at the very least. So we'll see what he does. I mean, he's a guy that keeps everything close to the vest, so he could pull a shock. But to me, I'm not expecting that right now.
Adam?
How can I predict the kid to come here and his dad wouldn't even walk onto the campus? I mean, he was on the campus, obviously, but he dropped him off for that little unofficial visit.
Yeah.
And the dad wouldn't even come be a part of it. Like, no, I think in the end, he's going to stay with Florida. I think that there's some things working in their favor there, that he's going to end up there. And we'll see how long he stays there, because Billy might be out in a year. If Lagway ends up flipping on them tomorrow, he might be out sooner than that. But
guys, and we think we're going through the tone and tenor of this after the first two haven't been completely fun, but I feel like we're being realistic.
Yeah.
but it could be a whole lot worse. Probably not what you want to hear after a 13-0 season, but whatever.
No, it's tough. I mean, I think a lot of people are frustrated with it that we're not projecting all these guys to land with them. But I would argue, like, and we started with this. We've really discussed what, like 5 guys. They're at positions in need. They're big time players, but the bulk of the nucleus of your roster is finished, or the heart of your class is done. I mean, they're going to sign a ton of guys tomorrow that are really, really good football players and are better than anything they've been signing of late. Like there's a major upswing in what they're doing recruiting wise. They've just got to find a way to do this part better and to find a way to finish these recruitments.
I agree. So that's where I want to get to, because I want to have perspective. We belabored over these 5 extremely important guys, and they are. And it is indicative of trends at positions and trends at times of recruiting cycles and things like that. But we are going to give you a lot of perspective, probably more tomorrow, about like just what this whole entire class is, because it's filled with a lot of good kids that we haven't even talked about that are very solid and talented. But my question to you, Zach, yeah, absolutely, man. Like this is going to end up being a great class. But I want to talk to you. Is there anything that could happen tomorrow from these kids that we spoke about to make, like, is there a potential disaster scenario? Like, is there anything that could happen tomorrow that could take what I just said and invalidate it? Like, could make this like a complete failure for FSU? Because I want to give these guys, we're talking about incremental steps to having like championship level recruiting to match their championship level coaching. Is there anything that could happen tomorrow that, in your opinion, could make it a disaster?
I mean, in the realm
that's
of
likely. That's likely.
No, I would not say anything like that is likely. I think they're still going to sign a really solid class, regardless of how the kind of remaining targets / shaky commitments pan out. I mean, if you lose a guy like Charles Lester or something like that, then maybe we could talk about, that sort of scenario playing out, but I don't expect that to happen. So no, I mean, I think that gets lost in all this, and you guys bring it up as a great point. Like they are going to sign a good class, regardless of kind of what happens tomorrow. Like I fully believe that. So not overly worried about like the, kind of bulk of the class. I mean, obviously Armando Blunt and KJ Bolden are the 2 that we're kind of monitoring, with, one more likely to flip than the other. But yeah, I mean, I'm not like pessimistic on the overall haul for Florida State.
Right.
I think in totality, it's a really solid group. It's definitely an upgrade over what they signed in past cycles. And this is the kind of the trend that they need to continue. But like, we can talk about, after the dust settles tomorrow, like, are they doing enough considering kind of where they are in the college landscape of things, winning 13 games, 13 games in this season, 19 in a row. Like, are we seeing enough results on the trail? And I think, I think that's the point that can be brought up. But no, I mean, it's, unequivocally they are upgrading the roster and they're signing a better class than they have. And I mean, and anytime I've covered the program, I mean, I started with Willie Taggart. So like, I know I have a low bar, but that's the best class I've covered.
I've got one. We didn't discuss it. It's a portal candidate. What are if we had to sit here and make a prediction on Cam Ward today?
Bro.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's talk.
If you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to talk about it. If you don't want to, just say no.
No, I can talk about it. I'm not feeling super confident in any sort of way on that. So yeah, I mean, he's an important prospect for FSU. Obviously, the Washington State quarterback transfer Cam Ward that we're talking about, FSU is still in the thick of that. I think they're like the Ward family. Last we heard is still like negotiating, evaluating. All under that umbrella. I think they'll come to a decision at some point over the next week. It's kind of the timeline. I think Christmas is the deadline. So we'll have some sort of decision from Cam Ward on whether it'll be, FSU, Miami, or the NFL. I think those are the 3 options. And I do think he's actually weighing the NFL option, from what I've been told. But I mean, FSU's in the thick of it. I think he really enjoyed that visit. It's too early to predict for me, I guess.
Okay.
I've actually got not a lot. I wouldn't say like over abundance of confidence, but I actually think that one's going to go the FSU way. So
Ooh,
From
okay.
you?
from me, Mr. Negative.
From Mr. Carfarts himself? Interesting.
Yeah. We'll see.
I love
We'll
it.
see. I think there's some twists and turns maybe to still show up in that one, but yeah, I think there's a chance to get him.
I like that. So I think that is good perspective. Like I said, we belabored these very, very important program changing guys. But what Zach said, it's not whether they're doing it tomorrow is going to be good or bad, or if the class is good or bad. The class is good, really, no matter what happens, as long as it's realistic. We're talking about, are they maximizing their opportunities to get this place to the next level? And all of these things that we're talking about, these aren't like going from good to bad. These are incremental things that now over a pattern of years have showed up that I think you can easily improve on. Will they choose to? I don't know. But guess what, guys? We're going to find out together tomorrow. I don't know. Do you want to answer? Like, I know I haven't looked at the chat. Do you want to answer any questions? You just want me to just like send it into closing time mode?
No, I think we'll close it out. There's a lot of people. I mean, unless Zach sees a question or two in there that he thinks is worth answering. A lot of it is folks that are just trying to get caught up. Yes, I will. Hold on. What is the stipulation for me shaving my beard in the car with the windows rolled up?
I think they just want you to do it.
Yeah.
while you're smelling your farts.
Shopping for convertibles tomorrow.
I love it, dude. Let's just end it. Guys, thank you so much for being with us. Knowles247.com. Listen, if you haven't subscribed yet, tomorrow is like our Super Bowl. Like that's you're going to want to be on the board for that. It is going to be wet. It's going to be wild. It's going to be fast. It's going to be crazy. And if you're not on the board, you're going to be left out of it, and people are going to laugh at you, and they're going to lose respect for you, and you'll be a lower class of human being. And I don't want that for you because I love you. So just sign up for the board, man. So you know everything that's happening, and you can look at like what smart people like Zach say, and you could say it to your coworker in the office, and you can pretend like you said it. So you can look like an insider, and then you can tweet about it because it's pretty sweet. We love you guys. Knowles247.com. Early signing days tomorrow. Hang in there, FSU fans. It's either going to be great or it's going to be frustrating, but overall, you're still 13-0. Program's looking good. I love you. You're beautiful. Keep chopping.